Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the eCommerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mentoring Moments. I'm here with my man Ivo from Next Commerce, and we're having a little bit of one of our 2 weekly mentorship conversations, and he's brought up a really good question today, which is, how do I streamline the customer onboarding process into our platform to make it more efficient for us as a business, make it better and more engaging for the customer, and ultimately get to a point where it's so refined that I can potentially hand that off to a third party, an agency, whoever it is that might be implementing the software, an internal business user, whatever it might be. If I understand you correctly, that is the primary focus of our conversation today.
Yes, thank you very much, Jason, and thanks for having me again. That's exactly what I would like to talk to you about, where I need mentorship here to really understand, okay, where do I stand today? How do I get it to the next level of automating processes, of also knowing where to have one-to-one sessions with my clients or even their vendors, or where to automate certain processes. Getting your guidance here is invaluable. So I'm really looking forward to hear what you can give me as tips and feedback.
No, and look, you're in this interesting place in the early phases of building your business and building your product and building your brand, where this is a key consideration of, okay, I have to wear all the hats because I'm the founder of the business and I've only got so many hours in a day. So how can I make this more efficient? But I think one of the things I mentioned before we started recording was there's usually 3 reasons why a platform vendor will be in the position that you're in right now. First is they're not big enough or well-known enough to have a partner network of agencies, for example, that can do the implementations of your technology. Because everybody, I believe that every product vendor should ultimately get to a place where they are not doing implementations of their technology as fast as humanly possible. So if we think about Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, whatever, none of those platform vendors, you're not going to go and get your site implemented by Shopify. You're not going to go and get your site implemented by BigCommerce. You're going to find a Shopify partner or an agency that can help implement your site for you, or you're going to try to do it. You're going to try to DIY it, and you're going to try to do the configuration and install a $150 theme, and then you're going to try to go load up your products and go selling. And so what we want to do is we want to get you to that place as fast as humanly possible as well, because it is impossible to be an awesome, okay, I don't want to say impossible because probably somebody like Elon Musk could do it, but the reality is for most platform vendors, it is almost impossible to be very good at product and also very good at professional and managed services, because they are almost the antithesis of each other. It's very difficult to develop a really awesome implementation organization and support organization whilst also building an awesome product organization. Very difficult because they're 2 totally different skill sets, right? And we want to get you to that place as fast as possible, but usually there's 3 main reasons, as I said, why platform vendors don't do that, at least in the beginning. One is they're not well known enough to have partners that want to take the product on because it's high risk, whatever. So you need to seed the market with your product until it's well known enough that there's enough demand out there in the market that you can push leads to a partner, for example, and then they're incentivized to implement your product. 2, you oftentimes the second reason would be that you don't have a well-defined process yet. And so therefore there is no process to hand off to a partner. So you haven't refined the process, you don't have, or you don't actually have the tooling inside your platform yet for self-service, meaning that, okay, maybe your developers can use the tooling, maybe you can use the tooling, but the tooling doesn't have an interface, it doesn't have a wizard, it doesn't have a UI, whatever it might be. It doesn't have the tooling for someone to self-service yet. That's another stumbling block. And then the final one that I usually see is that even if you've got the capability in the platform for self-service, either directly by the business user or by the partner that's doing the implementation, you don't yet have the collateral to support that functionality, meaning you don't have the wiki, you don't have the videos, you don't have the documentation, the checklist, you don't have all that stuff, the wizards, you don't have all that stuff ready to go yet to support using those self-service interfaces. You don't have the help docs, you don't have all that stuff. Today, for example, if you Google anything that you want to do in Shopify, you put that in, you say, create a collection in Shopify, and you Google that, it will take you directly to the help page for how to create a collection in Shopify. And it will usually document it step by step and have an embedded YouTube video of how to actually do it in the Shopify UI. So not only does the UI exist to be able to do that, but then they have all the supporting collateral about how to use the UI to achieve an outcome. So those things all have to come together, right? So that's where you're at. You're at a place where the tooling probably isn't customer friendly enough yet. The process isn't refined enough yet. The collateral isn't there yet. And really, you need to seed the market. So those are all those scenarios are conspiring together to force you into a place where you need to onboard customers. You need to give them a white glove level of service to onboard them into your business. And you're saying, great, I know I need to do that, but how do I do that? How do I make it more efficient? How do I make it more pleasurable for the customer? And how do I speed up the process, basically? And what I said to you was anything that, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, because you laid out those building blocks, right? With the tooling, the processes, the collateral. What would be the things to start with?
Yeah, so I think that anything that makes you more efficient at onboarding a customer into the business is going to ultimately make it more efficient for the customer to onboard themselves into the business. So anything that you see, hey, cool, if I built this one thing in the UI, for example, it's going to make so much easier for me to onboard them. Where is the bottleneck? Trying to identify 2, 3, 4 significant bottlenecks in embedding a customer into your business and embedding your platform into their business and their processes and their workflows and getting them up and running. So time to value with platforms is a very big deal. So in other words, anything that allows you to get your customer the shortest time to value possible, focus on that. So even if it's less efficient for you initially, you can work that out. You can optimize that. But anything that is lengthening the time to value for your customers, fix that first. Because remember, when you buy a product, when you buy a platform, if I pay for Shopify, the sooner I can get that first sale through Shopify, the better off I feel about spending my $29, $39, $49, $59 a month on Shopify, right? The better I feel about giving them a cut of every sale through Shopify payments, right? So it's all about time to value. So I think anything that you can do to speed that process initially, even if it means more pain for you right now, right up front, you identify that. Identify how quick can we get, if we can onboard, I think it's a reasonable expectation to say, we need to do everything we can to onboard a customer within 24 hours. I want them to be transactional through our platform within 24 hours. And if that means that your initial upfront discovery has to take a little bit longer, so what I'm saying is from the moment the customer signs the contract and says yes to Next Commerce, I want them to be transactional on the platform in 24 hours if I can get there. That's a goal. And I think that's a very reasonable goal. Now, if you had to build the entire website on Shopify, then that might be unreasonable because now I have to go and build a site. But even building and getting up and running on a simple Shopify site, I can get someone up and running in 4 hours. Go back in the back end, do all the configuration, install a $150 theme, load up a bunch of products, buy a CSV, boom, where we can be transactional in 3 to 4 hours. No problem whatsoever. Now, obviously, that's not going to be integrated with back office systems and all these other things, but they could actually make a sale in 4 hours from the moment that they say, yes, I want to be live on Shopify. Now, I don't do that because I deal with enterprise customers, but I'm just saying Shopify has made it so easy to get transactional with their platform that the time to value is insane if that's the focus. And so I think if we can focus on that for you and take all the steps in advance to allow that to happen, even if it means a little bit more time before we can have a client sign on the dotted line to where we're gathering enough information, we're gathering all their dealer information, we're collecting all that information before they sign on the dotted line. Obviously, there's an element of risk there because you could potentially put in a whole lot of work and then they ultimately don't sign. So there is a catch-22 element there. And usually once someone is signed on the dotted line and you're maybe starting to charge them a monthly fee or whatever, then they're incentivized to get you information really fast. So I understand there's a fine line here of gathering too much information and doing too much work before someone signs on the dotted line. But this whole perceived time to value thing is a super important element of making sure that your customers do not churn.
I have a question here. So you make really good points, and this all relates to, let's say, self-service. This is essentially how Shopify is set up, right? Self-service. So you can register, and then you can do everything by yourself and start selling within maybe a few hours. Now, this is something that we could also do, as you mentioned, and it's a really good tips and very good way to do. I want to maybe get your thoughts on a second option, which could be full service. So not self-service, but full service. And I want to understand, what do you think about that? How do you see that? It could also be the case that we say, look, dear client, just sit back as if you are coming into a 5-star hotel, right? We will do everything for you. We will get you up and running within the next 3-4 hours. All you need to do is provide us A and B. Everything else will be taken care of in the next few hours. What do you think about such an approach, which is quite the opposite, but maybe also feasible? It is feasible, but what are your thoughts?
No, I love that equally well, because I think that whilst it's more of a heavy lift for you, we're still focusing on time to value. And the reality is, if you have discovered through 10 previous implementations that it's just so hard for customers to do all these 15 steps to get up and running, and they drag their feet, it takes them 2 extra weeks, and yes, they can do it, but it's painful. And if we do all the heavy lifting, then we can get them up and running in usually less than a day, a week, or less than 2 days, or whatever it is. Then I think that that's still focusing on time to value. I still think, even if you have to do the heavy lifting, that is still the focus on how can we get a customer seeing value from our platform as soon as humanly possible. And if that means you got to do more heavy lift up front, then what you can then focus on is, how can I now streamline that process once it's in my hands, and once I have all the information I need to be able to white glove onboard them and get them up and running? How can I then bring efficiency to that process for me and my team internally, instead of how can I streamline the process for my customer to do, right? So now it becomes, okay, how can I make this as efficient as possible so it doesn't cost me the earth to give that white glove service to a customer? So that means there's going to have to be certain automations, and there's going to have to probably be some out-of-the-box turnkey integrations you're going to have to build, etc., that will make this an easier process for you to deliver that level of white glove service. And you will start to see recurring patterns. You do this enough times, you'll see recurring patterns and say, geez, this is the part that kills me. Okay, out of 4 hours worth of effort, this one task takes me like 2 hours. I gotta automate that. I gotta streamline that. I gotta figure out a way to make this faster. And it will force you. It will force you to get better at that, because you won't want to just throw bodies at it.
Excellent. Because I think the challenge at the moment are the 2 products that I have. One is more of a self-service product, where you can create your own product or buy now landing pages, right? And this is where you probably need self-service. And the other product is where you can add a shopping cart to your website. Now, this is something at the moment, at least, where we have to do the heavy lifting, because the processes and toolings are all internally focused. So I think eventually what you're saying is, it of course boils down to maturity of the platform, but also what approach we would like to take in the medium term, right? Would it be more of a self-service approach? Then we need to get all the tooling, the processes, the collateral up and running, set up. Or this is a self-service package that we would like to offer to the clients, and then do the best we can to offer time to value. And I like that phrase, because this is ultimately what it boils down to.
And you may even, once you've refined that internally, you may ultimately, so we're talking 1, 2, 3 years out from now, you might offer two options. You might say, here's the self-onboarding option, and it's completely free and whatever. And then you might say, hey, but we also have a white glove onboarding option. It has a fee associated with it. It's $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is, but it's white glove. We only need a couple little things from you, and we take it all from there and we run with it. And it's completely painless. We test it. We get you to approve. We get you to do a short UAT, and then we make it live. So I think that there's probably room for you to develop both options ultimately. Once you have the self-service option available, then instead of offering that white glove service for free, you can say, this is a paid service now, because we do have the self-onboarding capability. We've got all the collateral, we've got all the tooling, the interfaces, the UI, the wiki, the wizards. We've got everything we need for you guys. We've got all the spreadsheets for you to download information from your suppliers, for your dealers, and then upload it into the platform, etc. We've got the connectors for their e-commerce platforms that basically you just have to click a button, furnish the API key, and Bob's your uncle, and you're off to the races. Once you've got that refined to the point where you feel like it's, for lack of a better term, completely idiot-proof, then at that point, then you can say there's no reason why a customer shouldn't want to onboard this way, because they're going to need to know about our platform in some respect anyway. So we're still going to have to do some training anyway. So if they want to do white glove onboarding, great. There's a $1,500 fee for it or something like that, just so that there's a little bit of skin in the game if they're expecting that white glove onboarding.
I really love the way you just put it, because essentially you changed one word. You took out the or and an A or B, you crossed it out and said, why not do A and B? And have the client make the decision whether he would like to pay for a full service or says, hey, I can do it myself and I will save a few bucks and do the self-service onboarding.
Correct. And then if they get stuck when they're doing the self-service and they're going, yep, cool, I've got all the collateral, but man, this is just too much effort for me to want to do. And they get halfway through it and they go, nah, I'd rather it. At least then they know the value of the white glove onboarding. When you ask them, when you turn around and you say, that's $1,500, then they're going to know why it's $1,500 instead of just saying, well, you want me to use your platform, why don't you onboard me for free, right? All right, my friend. Look, fantastic conversation as always. Hopefully this has been helpful, and yeah, we'll look forward to catching up in another couple of weeks. Hey team, I have a big favor to ask you. Please pause this episode and send the link of this episode to someone you know that you think would enjoy this content. Really appreciate you spreading the word. This is how we grow. We're not a Joe Rogan. We don't have big, massive advertising budgets, but we absolutely want to grow. We want to get the learnings from all of these episodes out to as wide of an audience as possible, and we need your help to do it. Thank you, and now back to your listening. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mentoring Moments. I'm here with my mate Daniel, and we were just talking through a few things. He had a great agenda for today around some of the challenges that they're facing as a new, app in the marketplace, a new Shopify app in the marketplace, of trying to help build a sense of urgency and a sense of value with their customers to move from the consideration phase to the trial phase to the actual, this is a part of our stack phase, and moving them along that journey as fast as possible. Because at the end of the day, as a young startup like you guys, you live and die by cash flow. And what generates cash flow is people subscribing to the platform as a SaaS platform and you guys getting fees in through the door. That's the bread and butter of you guys surviving, is how can we onboard as many customers as fast as possible into the platform. First of all, find the customers or potential customers, onboard them into the platform as soon as possible, get them up and running on the platform so that they then are eligible and get them through any free trial period, any free design partner period, and then getting them actually paying. That's when it starts affecting your bottom line and you actually start having cash flow. So how do we accelerate that process of getting them through that consideration phase into the actual adoption phase? What are the steps we can do to improve that, both from an efficiency perspective for us, but also for our customers? But ultimately, how do we create psychologically a sense of urgency to help make that happen? And we talked through a few things and a few levers that we thought we could pull to achieve that for you guys and to help you accelerate that onboarding process. What did you think of that discussion? And did you feel like that was actionable, stuff that you could start doing today to start improving that process?
Yeah, 100%. So it was really interesting. So thanks as always, Jason, for your advice. The first area that we chatted about was really thinking deeply about the priority agenda of the decision maker, of the people that we're working and collaborating with, and think of them very much as a design partner. So for the stage we're at, we're very collaborative, and therefore where we can help them with their priority agenda, and and in a way that also supports us, there's a great way to be able to push up the priorities. For example, one of the areas we talked about is if increasing conversion rate is one of the KPIs on their agenda, it's what are the ways in which we can show that this is such an easy, fast way to deliver on that KPI, and we can make that as easy as possible. Different ways we talked about is, for example, pricing, like a time limit, a discount, a free trial, just allows that decision maker to be able to get all of the benefits and to see all the benefits from other similar companies, and then also without any pricing friction for the first 30 days or 60 days, and then without the setup, like any time required in the setup. So whatever we can do that takes away and reduces the amount of time, but maximizes the benefit, makes them look good in their role within their company, and just makes their life as easy as possible. So it really came down to that. And I think a lot of the different areas we talked about internally is what are the ways in which we can make that process as easy as possible. And that's different ways, like we mentioned, with on the pricing side, but also internal processes. So what are the different checklists, the white gloved approach that we can do and set up internally, such that more and more over time it becomes much more self-service. So really reducing the time required, both on our side, but also for customers, for clients, for design partners in that setup process to make it as easy as possible. That's what we talked about. And it's really amazing now that we're building up top of funnel, and a lot of these strategies we can add and directly put into play, like you say, in that middle to funnel, bottom of funnel, and then customer success going forward.
Yeah, and I think, what we also covered was the fact that any extra effort that you put in today to making the onboarding process easier and more seamless for you guys today will make it easier, if at some point, I know you guys as the founders are doing the onboarding today and you're working one-on-one with customers. Eventually, the goal is to not be able to do that anymore. The goal is to be so damn busy and to have so many clients clambering to onboard with your platform that you're going to need, say, a customer success manager or a customer success team that can now do the white glove onboarding. And the easier you can make it for yourself, whether that be a Loom video, whether that be a checklist, whether that be a wizard, whether that be PDF documentation, whatever it might be, that is, and also in the app admin UI, making that process as easy to navigate and use and configure as possible. I think all these things working in concert together are going to make it faster and easier for you to onboard customers, easier to hand that process over to any eventual customer success manager or somebody working in the business. And then finally, and ultimately, maybe 6 months, 12 months, 24 months down the road, ultimately making self-onboarding super easy because you'll have ironed out all the bugs, you'll have ironed out all the challenges, you'll have all the collateral you need. And then ultimately the vision is to allow customers to self-onboard in a try before you buy way, either through a literal 30-day free trial or whatever it might be, or a free forever plan or tier that allows them to onboard without uninstalling the app. What we're trying to do, especially in the Shopify ecosystem, the goal is to get as many installs and as few uninstalls as possible. And so the reality is if you have a free forever tier, then the barrier to installation is lower because it's zero risk, and it allows them to not need to uninstall. Even if they ultimately don't want to move on to a paid tier, they can stay at this lower tier indefinitely without uninstalling. Because remember, Shopify looks at uninstall rates as part of their ranking algorithm for where apps turn up in their app store. They're looking at lots and lots of KPIs, right? They're looking at impressions versus installs. They're looking at installs versus uninstalls. They're looking at competition for specific keywords and app types and app categories. They're looking for regional performance. They're looking at a whole range of data to manage the tie break, so to speak, of similar apps within their app store to know what order to list them in and what to promote and what to demote. And so what we want to do is we want to make it as easy as possible to get into our app and as not as difficult as possible to get out, but disincentivize getting out of our app as much as humanly possible. So I think anything we can do to flip that switch and lower the barrier to entry is really helpful from an app usage statistic perspective.
100%. And on that question, if you, for example, if you introduce a free forever tier, like that's great. Like you say, you drive installs and then you reduce the incentive to uninstall. How do you then think about attracting the right type of customers, say ones that have the willingness to invest in implementing that solution into their business? Because there is still always that time investment, even if you try and make it as small as possible, and how you balance that with, say, a free plan where there's no barrier for like incentive or motivation to use and invest in that solution.
Look, I think, am I still with you there? I think I lost you for a minute.
Yeah, it's lagging a little bit.
Look, I think what you're doing now is admirable in the sense that you're having to do some cold outbound, which is always difficult, but you have modified the way in which you're doing cold outbound to make it really transparent that, hey, you are the prototypical perfect customer that we love to work with, but we really want to get some feedback from you about what we could do to make our product as appropriate for you as possible. Your customers are going to be the ones that ultimately sign up with you, are going to be the signal that will tell you which kind of merchant you now need to go after more of. So that as you get more track record under your belt of people that convert from those cold outbound, the people that install the app, the people that go through the onboarding process with you, and then ultimately the merchants that stay with you medium to long term, that is going to form a much clearer picture of your ICP. Because at the moment, you're still trying to find product market fit. You don't have it yet. You're well on your way, but it's not, you don't have perfect PMF yet. And so the reality is this is a process of finding product market fit in conjunction and in partnership with your design partners. So they're giving you feedback in exchange for a free or discounted app for a certain window of time. So they're giving you feedback and they're saying, hey, we'd love this piece of functionality. We'd love you to improve this. We'd love you to add this reporting. We'd love you to do X, Y, Z, right? So not only are they telling you and giving you information on what will allow them to want to stay on your app, but they will represent a cross-section of the market, right? Every single merchant you work with represents a certain cross-section of that market. And so it's not just, yes, very occasionally someone will ask for something that is totally unique to them, their business model, their vertical, their exact brand. But most of the time, they're going to be asking for something that is a desire that a certain segment of that Shopify merchant base will want. So they're helping you improve the product for them, but also all of the other brands like them in the market. So they are helping you find PMF over time. And once you find PMF, you will all of a sudden, instead of having to be a lasso, you will be a magnet. You will be attracting through your messaging and through your product, through the listing page on Shopify, through your pricing, through all those things that make you who you are. You now, they say your vibe attracts your tribe. You will now all of a sudden attract the right tribe for your app based on that product market fit percentage. Like, are we 50% of the way there? Are we 80% of the way there? Are we 95? Have we found perfect 100% product market fit? And once you do, then you will have to be less of a lasso and you will be more of a magnet. You will naturally attract brands to your platform that work well within what you do. And if we think of order editing, they have started to, through the work that they've been doing on publicizing what they're doing and how they do it, they're now starting to become a magnet, right? They've been featured in a couple of email newsletters, e-commerce email newsletters, and now they're really starting to build some momentum where instead of having to do 99% outbound, now they maybe only have to do 50% outbound or 30% outbound because they've got so much inbound that it's keeping the two founders perpetually busy doing demos and onboarding customers. And that's where we want to get you to. And I think that once we do that flip from, hey, we're a primarily outbound business to a primarily inbound business, that will be the signal that tells you've hit really solid product market fit.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And we're on the way.
You're on the path. You're on the journey. Yeah. And you guys are young, you're keen, you got lots of energy, you want to do good things for merchants, and you want to help. And so I think you've got all the component and constituent parts to be successful. Now we just have to scale that. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.